All right. Very well. Okay, so this is Senate Appropriations, and we're taking testimony or considering amendments to the big bill. And the first is one that's being offered by Senator Hardy. And it's something that should look very familiar to us because it's been in past bills. And it basically is the language to have legislators choose how they wanted to get compensation, whether if they want reimbursement of expenses, then that would not be taxable. If they wanted an allowance, I believe that would, I'm talking about income tax purposes. So there's no cost because you can't claim more than the maximum allowance. And it's something that we talked about in the past. It's a matter of choice for each individual legislator in terms of reimbursement versus allowance. And so I'm going to ask either Senator White or him come up if you want to add anything more to this. And the first, and I don't know, do we have copies?
No, I don't think we do.
We don't have copies?
I don't think it's posted.
Oh, okay, that's, well,
I have a copy of Brooks want to pass one around.
okay. In the first instance of amendment, as I said, was recommended by Secretary Bloomer to have language. If we end up having to put the Pay Act into the big bill, we have the funding for it, but it's saying it's the intention by adding along with any applicable adjustments. So it would kind of allow for the fact that, you know, something might change or get adjusted as we go along. And the other is simply the language to allow an individual legislator to take make their own choice about whether they want reimbursement of expenses or whether they want to take the allowance. And as I say, tax considerations are what is driving it. There's absolutely no additional cost to the legislative budget.
What about the bookkeeping part of it? Somebody's gotta figure that.
Yeah,
out.
and Mike Ferran has reviewed it, and my understanding is he is fine with the language, and that would be the staffing that would have to take processing the payment. So Senator White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Rebecca White, for the record, you as an individual legislature would have to collect your receipts to submit if you wanted to do reimbursement.
But you were concerned about the administrative burden on the part of our staff.
Who's gonna go through the receipts?
Mike, the same as, I believe that you have to do that if you're a state employee. You have to have receipts for if you take a taxi, what your hotel room is, et cetera, or what your meals are. So if you wanted to go to reimbursement, then you have to provide the receipts and documentation. So, and it does mean a difference, but it's been reviewed by Ledge Council and it's also been reviewed by Mike Ferran.
So I'm just wondering, the current system where we get reimbursed for our expenses?
Taxable, it's not reimbursement,
Yeah.
it's just an allowance.
Oh, so that's an allowance, what we're doing here.
Yeah, so this would allow you to say, I wanted to be reimbursed, and then if you want that, and you want the tax benefit, then you have to do the documentation that
I see.
those are expenses subject to reimbursement.
Your automatic meals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus getting receipts for your lunch and dinner,
So,
is what the difference is, because the mileage is already not taxable.
right,
Got it.
When you drive
because
back.
it's a reimbursement. So other comments that are like,
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only additional point I'd make, and I think it speaks a little bit to Senator Starr's concern, is you would have to make a decision at the beginning of the session, is my understanding. And so you couldn't flip flop. You couldn't say 1 week I want reimbursement, 1 week I want stipend, and back and forth. You'd have to make a decision at the beginning of the legislative session so that staff would know kind of what their requirements would be.
so I think that we've actually
I'm good
considered
with
this,
that.
and so
I'm good with
we
that.
view it as a
Do we need a
friendly.
motion, or is it
No.
all part of one big package?
No, it's a separate one, but I can speak, the committee views it as a friendly amendment.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, so now we have our omnibus amendment here that the committee has worked on.
And
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have to go upstairs, but I am yes on.
Thank you. And it's,
This is the one you gave Ron in this.
yes, except with a couple of alterations, and I'll point that out. What you got this morning was putting in writing the very decisions we made last night. And so there are a couple of things, and I'm gonna go through it, so since I'm gonna have to present it. one area, that's here, I'm going on to page 3. And this is getting into the, of the contingent appropriation. I want to, in conversations with, economic development, they have been concerned and they were actually thinking about raising a tax to do this. I said, let's put it on the, contingent list. And that is, cancer screening for our volunteer firefighters.
Right.
And so I'm suggesting that, we would add $1 million to support, the screening of our volunteer firefighters. We have a high percentage of volunteers and, obviously the departments have very minimal funding for that kind of, screening. And, so that was one that got added and,
13.
well, let me go through what else we've added because it'll change the list. We, yesterday I had said, we were going to change the $350 that we had to, provide the, loan, assurance for $350,000 for forgivable loans. And, feeling that it was much better to simply do grants and that we have a program, VGAP, if you remember. So adding, rather than the $350 to the loan loss reserve, this would replace it with just $5 million off the contingency list to assist, businesses with their losses as a result of the, flooding. Okay,
14.
and, we then added, if we have the money to reimburse the caseload reserve for what we had appropriated for the pilot project for 5 hospitals. And then the reason we're doing this is we are anticipating that revenues coming in the last quarter are going to be, up. We think we've got obviously the, bump from the, influx of, tourists and spending as a result of Mother Nature's eclipse. So, the other would be to add, the money that, some of us were on transportation, and that's the 12.5 to, have for next year to provide the necessary match to draw down the IIJA funds that would go into the transportation, plan. And, the other changes would be, putting more money into the dam safety revolving loan fund. We've been told that they can use everything we have. We have some very old and somewhat, risky dams and some, so this would help with, the loan fund and getting it capitalized because it is a revolving loan fund. And the last would be, this is just if there's money available in the budget, there is money 7.3 to add more shelter beds. And this would say, if we have 10 million at the end of this list, it would go to DCF OEO for expanding the number of shelter bed capacity. So have I got that correct, Brady?
Yes, I would just clarify for the committee in sub 13, the 1 million for cancer screening, professional firefighters and the enrollees in Vermont Fire Academy Firefighter 1 program are also eligible.
Yes, go ahead.
Comment on that. At some point, as we get more into, it's basically the PFAS, that causes that, and it really takes medical monitoring. Screening is great, but unless you monitor it over a period of years, it is not going to detect those cancers that have developed in so many people. And I think, and we don't have to put it in the bill, but hopefully we can expand it to a medical monitoring system.
Oh. Well, we can put it on our list of to-dos
Yeah,
in the future. Longitudinal. Other comments about the contingency list? Yes, Senator.
Okay.
Hand up the head from 418, number 10 was the recovery centers.
Yes.
Is that still on the list?
Becky.
The recovery residencies are addressed in a different section of the bill.
We just put it into this, use the money one time.
So you'll see in a second, sorry, not a second, just
Second amendment, section 3. Because we put it in a different place.
Okay, so it's just in the, not on the contingency, it's in the one time.
Actually, we are funding the recovery residents with base dollars. It's in the base budget. And it's part of that money that we couldn't use that got appropriated last year. That would provide, it was 149,000 that we allocated to recovery residents. And it got really, confused in terms of centers versus residents, but we got an email. And we've been told very clearly, it's the increase is directed to the residents. So we have, but we need to get rid of this language to clean it up. And then the third instance of amendment is Bill H 233, which I think is coming out of health and welfare.
I think it's in finance.
Oh, in finance. Well, anyway, there are 3 positions in the bill, which a DFR can fund, but that means we have to reduce the revenues that we can directly apply because the cost of the positions would reduce the amount of revenue available to direct app. And then the fourth instance, we forgot to remove a position, a grant administrator that we did not fund, so that removes it. And then Senator Sears and I had some conversation, and we've heard from the administration that the new initiative to reduce the number of detainees that are occupying our correctional facility beds does to do the community supervision needs positions. So the amount of money that we have in the budget right now would fund 5 probation and parole officers to support that initiative. Fifth instance, that was around case management responsibility, and we meant it so much, we put it in twice. I guess people thought once was enough. And the 6th is simply being clear on the age for the emergency housing, clarifying it's 19 years of age or under. And then the 7th is all related to the 1.5 million that we put in this year phase to reduce the deficit target for our Vermont State Colleges to meet as part of that. So that was the structural deficit that was in expended statute of 25 million. We brought that down by 1.5. Next year will be a total of 3, therefore it'd be 22 versus 25. And I think that's it. Is that correct, Brady?
yes.
Okay.
And just for the committee's awareness, it should be permanent support housing, so that word will be added in the version that goes to the Senate Secretary's office.
Which one?
In the contingency list, the ECF OEO appropriation for shelter beds and permanent support housing, just the word housing is missing and stuff.
Okay. So committee, does that reflect everybody all right with what we've done?
Yep.
Last night and what we
I'm good.
kind of swept in it.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks.
Permanent supported housing capacity.
Yes.